Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my May and June wrap up. I read a total of 6 books in the last 2 months. It would have been 8 books, but I DNF'd one book and I'm still currently in the middle of one book, so I only read 6. I read 4 books in May, 2 books in June, and I did read 5 physical books and 1 ebook. I am really happy that I am picking up my physical books. I'm just having a hard time reading on my iPad. Just reading on a screen is not appealing to me right now. I just cannot concentrate. I concentrate better reading a physical book, which is great news for me because I have plenty of physical books that I need to read. So I'm trying to focus more on that. I would say this is definitely my worst reading months of the year so far. I definitely struggled to read, especially in June. June was just like not a good reading month for me at all. Obviously, I haven't been reading any like 5-star reads either, which is so sad, but I'm really hopeful for July and August, and I kind of just want to focus on that. Just move forward and focus on bigger and better things. So I started off May with a DNF. I tried to read Kingdom of the Feared by Kerri Maniscalco. This is the 3rd book in the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, and I got to page 170, I think. It was 174. So I was about to start chapter 13, and I just could not continue. I was incredibly bored. I didn't find anything interesting about this book. I didn't really care about the characters or the romance or just the plot. It was just boring, and I was tired of trying to force myself to finish this. I talked about the first 2 books in my last wrap up, and I didn't really like the first 2 books, but I had bought the entire trilogy before I read the first book, which is a huge mistake on my part. I rarely ever do that, but I had read the first book, Stalking Jack the Ripper, and I had loved it, and so I was very convinced that I would love all of Kerri Maniscalco's books. However, I think so far I just love her Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I did finish that series, and that's why I was reading this series, but I did not like the series as much as I loved the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. This is a young adult / new adult fantasy trilogy. It follows Amelia, who is a witch, and she has lost somebody very close to her, and she is set to avenge them, and she makes a deal with one of the princes of hell. The summary was very intriguing at first, but I just didn't really grow to love the characters or the romance, and like I said, it was just kind of boring, so I stopped forcing myself to finish this just for the sake of finishing the trilogy. And then I read, or I guess I reread, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I talked about this in a vlog a while back. I will link that vlog down below. I think I also talked about Kingdom of the Feared in that vlog as well. I have never fully read the Harry Potter series. I grew up with the movies, and I have owned these copies for years. I think I've owned them for like at least 8 or 9 years, and I still haven't read the full series. I've read the first 3 books, so this is why I'm saying it's a reread, but I've never continued reading the whole series, and I have finally decided that this is the year that I'm going to read all of the books, and my goal is to read 1 a month. So I read this in May, and I think originally I had given it 5 stars, and upon my reread I gave it 4 stars. I barely remember reading the first 3 books. It's been so long, but I know the movies by heart, so it was kind of interesting to see what they have changed from the movies and stuff. But yeah, this was a fun little reread moment for me, and I've just been like reading a chapter or 2 every night. I have kind of fallen off of it for June, but yeah, I'm happy I'm finally reading the series. Then I read one of my favorite books of the year so far. It's not a 5-star read, but it is a 4-star read, and that is The Demon of the Wood by Willow Quinn. This I bought because Lisa from Remarkably Lisa had recommended it on her Instagram, and I was immediately intrigued. First of all, the cover is just very, very cute. I'm obsessed with it. It's described as like a very cozy, wholesome fantasy romance or paranormal romance, and that just really made me want to read it because I love cozy paranormal romances. So this follows Melina, who lives with her uncle and cousins, I believe, and she's basically like their maid, and she is really struggling to live her life. There's always been these stories of this demon in the wood who is seducing all these like young women and taking them away from the village. And one day in the forest, Melina is kind of in trouble, and our male character came in, saves her from the situation, and she basically hides out at his place, and it's so cute. I'm not describing it very well at all, but it is such a cozy, wholesome, very cute, insta-lovey little romance, and I just really, really loved both characters, and they were so sweet and gentle with each other. They were both a little damaged, and they both healed each other, and it was just adorable. It was so cute. I clearly annotated a lot in here. It was just such a perfect little read. Like I said, this is one of my favorite books of the year so far. It was just so cute and exactly what I needed. Just like a very simple, easy little fantasy romance. Then I finally read Rage and Ruin by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the second book in the Harbinger trilogy, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like I don't even know really how to explain the series, but basically Trinity is this very unique, special girl. She has these very unique powers. She can communicate with ghosts and spirits, and she's been heavily protected by these wardens who are like shape-shifting gargoyles, and essentially something is killing both demons and wardens, so they're now trying to figure out like what's happening, and Trinity may be the answer to all of that. Again, not explaining it very well, but it just follows like angels, demons, gargoyles, all of that jazz. I really, really enjoyed the first book, and it has obviously been several years since I have read that book. That book came out in like 2019, and I now just read the second book. I definitely felt disconnected from the characters and the whole world. This book, in my opinion, really dragged. It was very boring for the first like 300 pages. Not a lot happened. It was just kind of basically like the whole setup for the end and then the next book. I just wasn't that attached to the characters or the romance. It was nice to see Roth and Layla in here because I love them. This is also a spinoff of the Dark Elements series, by the way. So some of the characters are in here. Like this is about Zane and his story. I just wasn't a huge fan. The plot kind of dragged for me, and I wasn't super invested, but I've owned this book for several years, like since it came out, and I do own the third book, so I really wanted to finish the series, and I am glad that I read this book. Then I read King of Wrath by Anna Huang, which I also gave 3 out of 5 stars. This follows Vivian, who is a jewelry heiress, and she essentially is part of this arranged marriage with Dante, who is a billionaire. He's blackmailed into marrying her, but once they start spending more time together, he is realizing that he might not want to break their engagement. I definitely liked this better than Twisted Love, which is the only other book that I read by this author. I just think that this author is not really for me. I just found it kind of boring. Like, not a lot happened. I feel like it was very surface level, very basic. I didn't really care about the romance. Like, I didn't feel the chemistry or the connection between the characters. It was just a very basic romance for me, and I just sadly didn't love it. I was hoping that I was going to love this and that I was going to read this entire series, but I don't have plans to continue it. So then that was it for all of my May reads. And then I started off June with Grace and Glory by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the third and final book in the Harbinger series. This I actually gave 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it so much better than the second book. This was way more entertaining, fast-paced. There was a lot of action. I got more into the world, and honestly, I loved the direction that this book went in. We got to see some very interesting characters, and I loved that aspect. There's also like a huge action sequence in here that I absolutely loved. Like, that was just wild. It was just so much better than the second book, and I kind of teared up at one point, especially like towards the end. There was like a revelation that I did not see coming. I will say this book had so many like ups and downs and so many things that I did not anticipate or like think of. So I will say there were lots of moments in here that took me by surprise, and overall it was just a really great conclusion. And then I finally read Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Springs series, and this I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I had read the first book, Flawless, also gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but I was determined to try to continue this series to see if, you know, the second book was better, because a lot of people do prefer the second book over the first book, and sadly I just really didn't care. I'm definitely not continuing the series now because I know a lot of people love the other books in the series, but if I haven't liked the first 2, like, there's no point in me continuing. I doubt I'm gonna like any of the other ones. This follows Willa, who becomes a nanny for Cade and his son. She's basically like a live-in nanny for like the summer, I guess. Cade is a very like grumpy, kind of rude guy, and Willa is very much a sunshine character. He is also like 13 years older than her, so there's an age gap. I liked aspects of this book, but it just wasn't worthy of like a 4 or 5 star for me. I felt a lack of connection between the characters, and I just wasn't super obsessed with their romance or them as characters by themselves. I did like kind of the forbidden aspect and the age gap aspect. I liked all of the scenes and like the plot. I couldn't get down with like the romance and the characters. I just found them very basic. I also did feel like the book kind of dragged a little bit. I think it was almost like 400 pages, or it might have been 400 pages. And it definitely didn't need to be that long, because it definitely was a little too slow for me. So that was everything that I read in May and June. I am also in the middle of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I don't know why, but I stopped literally in the middle of a chapter, but I'm on page 244. I was hoping to finish this in June because, like I said, my goal was to read 1 a month, but I was really struggling in June, so I never got to finish it, even though I was so close. So I'll finish this probably beginning of July, and then I'll move on to the next one. So that is it for my May and June reading wrap up. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about and what you think about them, or let me know what you have read recently. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!